primary kids, we've missed you, and your primary teachers have missed you. We hope you guys are all doing well. Today we're going to learn a song from, it's called The Books of the Book of Mormon. So we've been studying the Book of Mormon this year, and I hope you guys have learned a lot of cool things from the Book of Mormon. But I thought it'd be fun to teach you guys the order that the books go in the Book of Mormon and some fun actions to go with those to help you remember them. So the Book of Mormon was written by a bunch of different prophets a long time ago. Some of them were even born before Jesus was born, and then some of them after. And a prophet named Mormon, took all those records that people had written, all of their little books that they had written, and he put it all together in one book. And that's why it's called the Book of Mormon, because Mormon the prophet put it all together. But he didn't write it all, he just put it all together. So their different books in the Book of Mormon are different prophets, their experiences and their testimonies, and it helps us learn from the things they learned back then. And that's why we study the Book of Mormon. So the first prophets that we talk about are Nephi, and Nephi might be one of the prophets that you hear a lot about. But Nephi, and there's two books of Nephi. There's first and second books of Nephi. And Nephi was a really courageous man and had to deal with a lot from his brothers Laman and Lemuel, who weren't very righteous. And so there's a story about Nephi and his bow and arrow and how it broke and how they couldn't find food. And there's kind of some miracles that happened. So when we do the action for first and second books of Nephi, we're going to do the number 1 for first, number 2 for second, and then we're going to hold our hands out for book, and then we're going to hold our hands like a bow and arrow. So we have first and second books of Nephi. Okay? After Nephi, it goes Jacob. Jacob was Nephi's younger brother. He was also very righteous. And in Jacob's book, he talks a lot about the story of an olive tree that kind of relates to us and just the children of Israel. So we're going to take our hand out like this and hold our elbow in it, and we're going to make a tree. So that's going to remind us that Jacob taught us about the olive tree. Okay, so we have first and second books of Nephi, Jacob. Okay. The next book is Enos, and Enos was also a descendant of Jacob and Nephi. And he prayed all day and all night because he wanted some answers from the Lord. So we're going to fold our arms like we're praying. Okay? The next one is Jerem and Omni. Those are two separate books, but they're really small books. There's not a lot of things that they recorded from their lifetime. But we're going to just we're taking the Book of Mormon from Jerem, and we're going to pass it to Omni because Jerem is Omni's dad, and he passed those records down. And a lot of the time, the Book of Mormon records got passed down from father to son. Sometimes it was brother to brother. But we're going to take it from Jerem and give it to Omni. Okay, so let's do that. We have first and second books of Nephi, Jacob, Enos, Jerem, Omni. All right, the next book is Words of Mormon. Now remember, Mormon's the one who put all of this together. So Words of Mormon is a really small book, and it's just kind of like a little break that Mormon comes in and says a few words, some few comments, and so we have Words of Mormon. So we're going to take our fingers and make them like W's. So 3 fingers, make W for the word words, and then we're going to flip it upside down to make an M for Mormon. Okay, Words of Mormon. All right, start again. First and second books of Nephi, Jacob, Enos, Jerem, Omni, Words of Mormon. Okay, our next one is Mosiah. Mosiah was a king, and he had 4 sons. So you might hear a lot about the 4 sons of Mosiah. So Mosiah was a king. You would take your crown, and you put it on your head. Okay, King Mosiah, but we're just going to say Mosiah. And then it's the end of the verse, and we say in the Book of Mormon. So let's do that whole verse. Ready? First and second books of Nephi, Jacob, Enos, Jerem, Omni, Words of Mormon, and Mosiah in the Book of Mormon. Okay, that's our first verse. We have half of it done. Right. For our second verse, we have Alma. Now, Alma, the book of Alma, is a record of Alma the Younger. His father, Alma the Older, was one of the priests of King Noah. If you remember, King Noah was really wicked. And Abinadi came into the city to try to teach the gospel, and Noah didn't like it, so he had Abinadi killed. And Alma, the Older, did believe Abinadi. So he escaped out of the city and went and taught a bunch of people about the gospel and baptized them in the waters of Mormon. And then he had a son named Alma the Younger. So the book of Alma in the Book of Mormon is about Alma the Younger. And Alma the Younger was really good friends with King Mosiah's 4 sons. Remember how I told you there were 4 sons that King Mosiah had? They were all friends, and they didn't like the church. They wanted to destroy the church, and it really made their dad sad because Alma the Older and King Mosiah were really good men and good prophets. But their sons went and tried to destroy the church and get people to leave the church. But an angel appeared to them and told them to stop what they were doing and to repent. And they did. And they became some of the best missionaries that ever were in the history of the Book of Mormon. So the Book of Alma is the longest book in the whole Book of Mormon, and it talks a lot about their missionary work and some wars against the Nephites and the Lamanites. So we're going to do a missionary tag for Alma. So we're going to take our fingers and put it right here where a missionary tag would be. All right, so we have Alma, and then we have the book of Helaman. And Helaman was the son of Helaman, another Helaman, and they were good men as well. Helaman was the chief judge. So we're going to do a gavel like a judge. It helps to judge the people for Helaman, okay? So we have Alma, Helaman, then we have 3rd and 4th books of Nephi. Did you remember earlier in the first verse we had 1st and 2nd books of Nephi? Well, later on, years and years and years later, we have another Nephi come along who was very righteous, and he had a brother named Lehi. Not the same Nephi and Lehi from the first books of Nephi. So, but they were really righteous men, and so we're also going to do the same, pretty much the same actions as the 1st and 2nd book of Nephi, but we're going to go both 3rd, 4th Nephi with our bow and arrow. Okay? Then we have Mormon. So do you remember Mormon's the one that gathered all the records together and made the Book of Mormon for us so that it was easy for us to read in one book. So before we had Words of Mormon, where it was just a little section of some things that Mormon wanted to add in. But now we actually have the whole book that Mormon wrote. And so we're going to act like we're writing because Mormon was the one that put all of the writings together as one book. So we have Mormon. Then our next book is Ether. So the book of Ether is kind of out of order of the rest of the Book of Mormon, but it talks a lot about the people, the Jaredites, and they had to cross the ocean, and they had to make these tight boats so that, because when the water was so deep, when the waves came in, they didn't want to drown. And so the Lord commanded them to make these tight little, they were like dish type things. Like if you were to put 2 bowls together, make tight like a dish. And so that's what they had to travel in for a really, really long time. But so we're going to make our hands like a wave, like they're on the water, the people of Jared. And so Ether wrote about that experience. So we have Ether. And then Moroni is our last book. So you guys probably have heard the name Moroni because the angel Moroni is on top of almost all of our temples around the world. So we're going to clap our hands above our head like the top of a temple because of Moroni, okay? So we have right up here. All right, that's the last book in the Book of Mormon. So then our last line of the second verse is, learn the teachings of the prophets in the Book of Mormon. All right, so let's go over that whole second verse. I didn't go over it very well, but here we have Alma, Helaman, 3rd, 4th Nephi, Mormon, it's writing our book, Ether, and Moroni. Learn the teachings of the prophets in the Book of Mormon. All right, we're going to try the whole song. You ready? We're going to go over it without the music really quick, just because it goes really fast with the music, so I want you to be able to get it. So let's go over the whole thing one more time. All right, we have First and second books of Nephi, Jacob, Enos, Jeremiah, words of Mormon and Mosiah in the Book of Mormon. Alma, Helaman, third, fourth, Nephi, Mormon, Ether, and Moroni. Learn the teachings of the prophets in the Book of Mormon. All right, now you've heard the tune. Let's try with the music. First and second books of Nephi, Jacob, Enos, Jeremiah, words of Mormon and Mosiah in the Book of Mormon. Alma, Helaman, third, fourth, Nephi, Mormon, Ether, and Moroni. Learn the teachings of the prophets in the Book of Mormon. Awesome, we did it! See, it goes kind of fast. So practice it lots and lots, and then you can teach it to your families, and you guys can all remember the books of the Book of Mormon. Have a great day.